Right. There you go. There's Sophia. Naseem, welcome, Sophia. Thank you for joining.
Of
How are you
course.
today? You look wonderful.
Thank you. I feel really good today. Yeah, how are you feeling?
Amazing. Yeah, great, great. It's been a great few days. Been very productive. Been feeling a lot of love from the community, and just been very active in a lot of different things. So, yeah, just truly grateful. And I see that you've also been quite active in a few things as well. And I wanted to just learn a bit about the stuff that you've got going on. But I guess before we go there, I wanted to just introduce everyone to who Sophia is, who Sophia uh, has been for Disconnect, and how you have influenced and impacted the organization. So yeah, just I guess real quick, Sophia, do you want to maybe just talk a bit about a bit of your background, like where you're from, where you grew up, where you were raised, and kind of what helped you. What were some, I guess, critical moments in your life that helped shape who you are today?
Yeah, totally. So my my story is unique in that I was born and raised in Arkansas, but my ancestry is from India.
Arkansas. Wow, that's
You know this, right? Have you known
I
this?
know it was like somewhere East Coast, but Arkansas. Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, my dad had moved there to work for the university, and he's actually still there. So that upbringing was so unique in that, like, my family is Muslim, my family is
Hmm.
Indian. Growing up in Arkansas are very specific identities to have. Like, the South has its own culture. And I've grown
Right.
to love it for different reasons, but it was
Hmm.
also a bit difficult to create a sense of self um, in that environment for many different reasons. And
Hmm.
so I think the self love journey within my family and in the
Hmm.
context of growing up in Arkansas started pretty early, of realizing like there won't be that many rooms I walk into and people
Hmm.
understand the identities that I'm coming with and
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
multi-dimensional nature of my being. And so therefore, like, how can I honor myself? How can I um, speak to these different parts of me and make sure they're all held with care? I think
Hmm.
because of feeling like, okay, the world outside isn't necessarily going to reflect it, how can I be an advocate for that part of myself? So
Hmm.
then I was actually majoring in kinesiology. Three of my siblings are in the medical profession, and similarly, like my great grandfather were like eye doctors or pharmacists. So there's a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
people in my family that are in the space of what you might call like healing or care.
Hmm. Hmm.
But there's teachers as well. So I was actually going to school to go into physical therapy. And then I decided to switch my major to education. My dad's a teacher as well, but
Hmm.
the passion that came to me in school was from a place of I remember because I was in a group of friends that we were really active in school for just
Hmm.
noticing what kind of injustices were happening and making sure that there were spaces of care. And um, so from that place, I was inspired to go into education. And I thought,
Hmm.
like, there's so many people that are kind of looked over in our
Hmm.
society, and even measuring like success rates between the US educational system and other places, I was noticing part of what makes us not competing with a lot of other places that are doing a lot better in education
Hmm.
was because we have huge drastic like gaps between the people that are the haves and the have-nots and the quality
Hmm.
of education they're getting. So I thought, okay,
Hmm.
like if I find myself in spaces that are needing um, like the actual care, because I was coming from a
Hmm.
place of care,
Hmm.
um, that I could make a difference in that realm. And so I joined a program called Teach for America, and I moved to Missouri.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was there, and that started the
Yeah.
beginning of my educational journey and teaching.
Wow.
I
So you've kind of been all over the U.S. then, and
would. I would say South, Midwest, and then West Coast. And then my
Hmm.
family, like my siblings, mainly moved to the East Coast. So because of that, I stay traveling and to different parts of the U.S. Yeah. And then when I came to California,
Hmm.
I was still working within charter schools, and then I slowly
Hmm.
started to be more curious about other educational settings. So I started
Sure.
doing homeschool. Then I've
Hmm.
worked at a couple private schools as well, and it's good for me to have like contextual understanding of like the differences in the spaces and the approach. And I personally am a big fan of like, well, one, growing my own philosophy of education, but also
Hmm.
seeing more progressive models or nature-based models and comparing
Hmm. Hmm.
them. Yeah, it's an area of study that really excites me. And ultimately, I'm trying to gather what is like the best um, and most nurturing and most caring form of education where
Hmm.
all parts of the child's needs are being met, whether it's mental,
Hmm.
emotional, um, physical, and all, I mean, sometimes the emotional and the spiritual. There's like a bridge there.
Hmm.
So trying to
Yeah.
nurture all parts of the child, and yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful and also just so necessary, just because of the way that the modern education system is built. It is literally built to beat the imagination and creativity out of kids and make them factory workers. I grew up in India and in Cameroon, and I don't remember too much from my educational upbringing in India because I was very young, but it was again very like memorizing facts and memorizing this, memorizing that, and it didn't feel like education. I didn't feel like I was being taught something, but I felt like I was being forced to memorize facts, which never have used in my life, right?
Mm,
And yeah, like I think a lot of my adult journey has been trying to reclaim that inner child that was not allowed to breathe and was not allowed to live uh, through this educational system. And it's definitely much more difficult to unlearn all the bad things than it is to just, raise a kid right and give them the proper education.
yeah.
Um, so I guess, going back into, your journey of, being an educator, what are some of your main, I guess, philosophies? You mentioned like educational, spiritual. What are some of your main strategies or philosophies that you would like to implement or that you do implement when you do
Hmm.
teach, kids or whoever you do
Yeah.
teach?
Yeah. Great question. I think just in terms of unlearning, a lot of
Hmm.
times when we even accept the title of teacher, we think that we are like almost in an authoritarian way controlling that environment.
Mm.
And here's the content,
Hmm.
and I need you to learn this. But as we
Hmm.
can see, the
Hmm.
world is changing so quickly. So therefore, does it make sense to teach in the same ways and try to integrate these kids, which is, I mean, schools is the one of the first forms of indoctrination, right? Are we
Hmm.
trying to
Right.
indoctrinate these kids into this system that is clearly not working? Or
Hmm.
can we create more spaces that are like exploratory and
Hmm. Hmm.
spaces to actually listen to them because they have a lot of insight within themselves. They have a strong connection within themselves too. If you create a safe
Hmm.
enough environment for them to be able to express those things. So, that being a part of it, like, of course, guidance and learning how to be self sufficient, learning how to like read even so they can access information
Hmm.
themselves, learning how to be critical thinkers. Those take
Hmm.
skills, and it definitely takes the guidance of someone showing a child how to access education themselves, but
Hmm.
really holding an open space for them to
Hmm.
really grow creatively as well. That's a big part of it. And for me personally, like what has helped me come back to my own true nature has
Hmm.
been spending more time in nature,
Hmm.
observing nature,
Hmm.
seeing, feeling patterns and the cyclical movement of um, the earth. There's so much
Yeah.
information there. So sometimes it's like, how can I just be a conduit for what earth is already
Hmm.
teaching us? How can I provide more language around it, but to see myself as this like overarching teacher, I will teach you like that. I've taken a step back from,
Mm.
it's more
Yeah.
like how can I open up spaces of curiosity, be in the right
Hmm.
spaces and be a conduit or like a guide for this life of exploration.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that I think that's what we need to raise people that are going to shape the world. And it's, instead of being told like, hey, this is what you need to learn, this is what you need to learn, it's, like you said, creating those spaces where they can hone in on their curiosity. Like, wait, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in this, and I want to learn more about this. But if you just force them to listen to what you're saying, or like, this is what you have to learn, then you don't even give them the opportunity to get curious about it. And I remember reading this quote which said, curiosity is one of the most fundamental methods of insubordination. And
Mm,
I just really love that saying, because, again, insubordination to what, right? To the system. And that's why curiosity is such an important skill that we need to honor, we need to encourage, and we need to allow spaces, like you said, to have more curious minds, because that's how we change things, right? And
totally.
if we never question things, then things will always stay the same.
Totally. Totally.
Cool,
Yes.
cool. Okay. So I see that you have, this deep love for education, and, nurturing and guiding people. And but you also have so many other talents and so many other skills that you embody. One of them being, the healing work that you do. And I guess I want to ask, how does someone who, comes from such a, like, I guess, traditional healing background of, like having family in medicine and siblings in medicine,
Mm.
grandparents, and this lineage of healing, how does one, navigate and find their modality of healing, and or move from education to the healing practice? Was it like a seamless thing, or was it like, oh, I need to stop this, I need to do this new thing? How did that come about? And if you want to talk about what healing means to you first.
Yeah, I guess let me define what healing means to me. It's so
Hmm.
much to me, of like holding the space.
Hmm.
Sometimes when you create more space around something, then naturally the emotion can move through in the form of expression in the way that it needs to. It's not like I'm doing
Hmm.
something that's precise that is causing this one thing.
Hmm.
You know, like that
Hmm.
is very much like an allopathic medical style
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
treating symptom-based
Hmm.
um, disease or illness.
Yeah.
Um, but so much of the way I think about it is lifestyle and preventative
Hmm.
medicine and how to live more in sync with nature and the
Hmm.
rhythms. And
Hmm.
in that way, I've always been a mover, a dancer. Since I
Hmm.
was young, I've had a really strong connection to my body. And I would
Hmm.
say that's my main source of information. A lot of
Hmm.
my knowledge and curiosities take me towards experiential learning. Like I'm like, oh, I want to try this, but I try it on myself. Like that's my
Hmm.
best source of information is when my body is within and immersed with something. How does it react and what
Hmm.
is it telling me? Okay, my
Hmm.
instincts are building and my internal guidance system is then telling me, okay, this works for me and that doesn't. And
Hmm. Hmm.
therefore, because I often will put myself in those situations to experience what something is like for me. When someone else comes and they're ready to experience something,
Hmm.
it helps for them to have someone who can hold that space open. So oftentimes I don't
Hmm.
ever use the language of I am healing someone else. It's like
Hmm.
maybe I'm just holding that space open for them to explore within themselves because our
Hmm.
modalities and our journeys are so different too. You know, who's to
Yeah,
say what worked for me in my journey would be the path that someone else takes?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
this is very different
yeah,
from a medical system and the healing
right.
system here, where there's so many things that are exact and precise
Hmm.
and,
Hmm.
need to be to treat very
Hmm.
specific things. So I have a respect for it because there's a
Hmm.
time and a place for everything. But I do feel
Hmm.
like what they call alternative medicine and sometimes even
Yeah.
pseudoscience could be
Hmm.
taken a bit more,
Sure.
seriously. And there's ancient knowledge about this, especially from our lineage and heritage. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
ancient knowledge. Yeah, that's within our bodies and blood.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. That's so beautiful. the way you put it as, creating a healing space rather than providing the healing. And I think that is a concept that definitely gets lost because we've been told that the healing needs to come externally, but we ourselves are so powerful and capable of healing ourselves, and that power has kind of been taken away from us in a sense where we've been told that you need to go somewhere else to get your healing instead of you try to find the healing within your body, within your intuition, and trusting yourself and reconnecting with parts of yourself that you have traditionally ignored, and bringing that to your awareness. So I guess that kind of brings me to my follow-up question, which is, uh, I personally, and I know a lot of people, especially men in this patriarchal society, have been kind of uh, conditioned to be disconnected from their bodies, from their intuition, from their emotions. And typically, men have a hard time expressing emotions, have a hard time connecting with their bodies. And usually, the only form of like acceptable emotion that we see from men is anger, right? And uh, and that usually comes from what society has deemed masculine and all that stuff. And I guess my question would be, you know, from someone who has so much intuition in her body, how would you help, or I guess what would you recommend to people that are disconnected from their bodies and their emotions, and to how to reclaim that agency within
Mm,
this patriarchal structure?
yeah, that's a great question. I think the first step, at least in my journey, was how can I honor and, like I said, advocate for my emotional space, whether that's boundaries, the right kind of
Mm-hmm.
communication, expression,
Mm-hmm.
and be in safe enough spaces where that is acceptable, and not only acceptable, but mirrored.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so first I have to create that sense of safety within my own system to say like, no, this is valid and I'm gonna stand up for my
Mm-hmm.
feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
then start creating my life in a way where the spaces that I'm in actually reflect that. And I'm happy to say now, like,
Mm-hmm.
you were speaking to masculine and the repression of emotions. I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
to say now that I know so many masculine people
Mm-hmm.
that are exploring their emotional landscape. And when I go
Mm-hmm.
to spaces, I see, like the ability to be in touch with themselves. So there's
Mm-hmm.
more of that language around. People are doing more work and reflecting to each
Mm-hmm.
other these things. So I do see the growth in that department. And to continue expanding that, feeling safe enough in one's
Mm-hmm.
body to express oneself, and then
Mm-hmm.
mirror that for other people. That's some of the first steps because we can make these grand plans, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes so much of the work is within the interpersonal relationships, like immediately around us.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when we're
Beautiful.
by ourselves, do we feel safe enough to like
Mm-hmm.
express in solitude, and then with
Yeah.
our closest relations, and then the biggest hurdle is maybe express with our families.
Not right.
Like
Especially South Asian families.
totally, totally. Yeah, and then
um,
I mean it's
yeah.
not unrelated to bigger things as well. Like we find
Mm-hmm.
that there are purposeful reasons why men stay disconnected from their emotions, because then
Mm-hmm.
they're easier to use for labor. Like you keep people
Mm-hmm.
disconnected, then it's easier to treat them like tools in a larger
Mm-hmm.
system. So there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely systems around it to study, and to take into account. Like our country especially is like purposely suppressing
Mm-hmm.
political consciousness. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why all of the things I speak about are not unrelated, like random hobbies. It's the
Yeah.
relation is moksha or liberation or actual freedom, freedom of the mind, freedom of the body,
Mm-hmm.
freedom of
Mm-hmm.
expression. That's what links all these things together.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mm.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's just all so interconnected, and all the men that are starting all the wars, they start the wars because they don't know how to feel their own emotions. And it's, I think, the true struggle of our lifetime, of our generation, is to really dismantle the patriarchy as well, because that is, as Bell Hooks said, it doesn't just affect women, it also affects men, and it affects everyone. Uh, and so there's always been like this talk of like, okay, we need feminism. But at least like my base understanding is feminism is trying to get equality under patriarchy rather
Mm,
than getting moving to a matriarchal society. And I
mm,
know we've talked about this a bit in the past, but I guess I wanted to, hear from you. What does, because we both come from matriarchal societies. A lot of indigenous cultures around the world before colonization were matriarchal. And so, I wanted to ask you a bit about what does, this world which is shaped by matriarchy look like, and how can we help make that happen?
yeah. So great question. So the term that I love to use is called matrifocal. And I actually, let me bring the book. I love
Okay,
having my
okay.
references on hand. But this book was the one that introduced me to that concept, the great cosmic mother, worth looking into.
Mm,
But the
okay.
reason why I like using the word matrifocal instead of matriarchal is because
Hmm.
I still see issue with any kind of hierarchies. When we're building things to
Mm,
be in an arc style, then there has to be a low where there is a high. And I think
mm,
bringing it back to matrifocal means like, how can we make this about mothers? How can we make this about
mm,
children? Or how can we make the center of our like infrastructure
mhm,
and
mhm,
societal attention point be some of the more vulnerable and marginalized communities, and they could be at the
mhm,
center, and then everything else is built around that. So therefore, when we're talking inclusive, it's not a little bit of reform here and there. It's
mhm,
actually, let's start at the center, which I find to
mm,
be like Black and Indigenous mothers, in the space of
mhm,
birthing. That to me is like, if we start there, then everything else
mm,
from that point could support that space. Um, yeah, which is hard to do in a capitalist world. It's difficult to make that shift, but it first has to
mhm,
come within people, and then a shift of focus and attention and uplifting, and focusing on different things in their own life. Enough
mhm,
people do that, and you start to really feel that shift. And then I also will
mhm,
say, like, mass. What was the word you used? Um, uh, Patriarchy versus
mhm,
matriarchy, I think
mhm,
coming back to a masc and fem principle is
mhm,
helpful because, again, the earth and its cyclical rhythms already show us a lot of fem patterns, or, like
mhm,
as a more, another way to describe it in yoga is like solar versus lunar, and it shows
mm,
us the more yin patterns. And if we tune into that, then we can ignite the feminine or the lunar principle inside of us.
mhm,
Um, and that in itself gives rise to the feminine principle on
mhm.
earth. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the common misconceptions is that, men are the divine masculine and women are the divine feminine, but everyone has the capacity to hold both energies within themselves. And, obviously, like some tend to lean heavily in one side or the other, but that doesn't mean that we have to be disconnected from one or the other. You could be masculine and still embody the divine feminine, and vice versa as well. And I think that also kind of gives a rise to our fear of non-binary and trans people in society,
Mm-hmm.
because they themselves are an epitome of what freedom from patriarchy can look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I wanted to ask: is there because I know we mentioned like, the divine masculine, divine feminine, but also when it comes to, the trans community and the non-binary community, they've also predominantly been not only at the forefront of all activist movements around the world, but they've also been highly, highly victimized and attacked in mainstream media and in real life. If you look at the highest rates of
Hmm.
murder in the U.S., trans, especially, Black trans women, I think have like a lifetime expectancy of around 30, 40 years,
Yeah.
which is which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess, I just wanted to hear, what are your thoughts on how why it is important to learn and understand the principles of feminine masculine also from a lens of the gender norms and the gender binary, and how we can help change that.
Yeah. So, like I said, when it comes to matrifocal societies,
Hmm.
if you just have the more vulnerable or marginalized people at the center,
Hmm.
including trans people, then there's a lot more ability for there to be voices from the inside that are
Hmm.
helping create the structure
Hmm.
um, on the outside. Like if we got a
Hmm.
lot more information from trans folks on their experiences and how to create structures where their safety feels centered, naturally
Hmm.
it takes care of so many other people's safety because theirs
Right.
is so unique to their experience. And yeah, those voices definitely need to be uplifted so we can create more sustainable
Hmm.
systems.
Right, right.
Hmm.
Beautiful. And I think, the saying is, if you work for the liberation of the most oppressed, then you are therefore, by definition, working for everyone's liberation. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Hmm.
also kind of where we connected was, centered around Palestinian liberation.
Hmm.
And, as most of us know, the Palestinian liberation struggle is tied to every aspect of humanity.
Hmm.
uh, and also, this is something that you've been, very passionate about. You've been very vocal about for many years, even before October 2023. And so, I guess I wanted to ask you, how has, been being part of, the Palestinian liberation helped you in your own healing and liberation journey?
Uh, I mean, the biggest thing lately, I will say,
Hmm.
is I've been working on divesting on a
Mm,
serious level in my own
sure.
life. And like you said, sometimes the unlearning of anything takes a lot longer than just, starting from the
Hmm.
beginning.
Hmm.
Um, but the more we see how systems that we've created of convenience are linked to systems of harm for other people, then
Hmm.
actively choosing to divest. And it can be tough because we're choosing not conveniences anymore, but like ethical standing and letting us stand really truly on that for the sake of our integrity. And
Hmm.
that's how I would say, like, just being in tune with something that feels so close to your heart can
Hmm.
have you make changes in your daily life and practice. Um, it's not just beliefs and theories like I believe this should happen, that this person should be
Right.
free. It's like how in your daily life are you making the choices to support it? Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, and then when I see videos coming out of Gaza and like the spirit and the faith of the
Hmm.
peoples that are going through so much, but they're like, um, my best friend is from Syria, and they've told
Hmm.
me times of like going to visit home and how there's such a banding amongst the people who are going through
Mm,
very unstable times, and sometimes they don't have power and they won't have, there's so many things that are that we take for granted and they don't even
mhm,
have, but their sense of community because they're all experiencing
mhm,
it together is
mhm,
just, there won't be a time anyone would sleep outside or wouldn't get a meal if some people had food. That
mm,
kind of communal care. Yeah, it's had me turn more towards mutual aid communities as well in my own life and be like, you
mm,
know what? It's the people that that are there in times of crisis and really know how to hold that and show up and support. That is what real community is. You know, you can try to
Yeah.
build a life around like, oh, I have fun with this person, and then when things are good, we're doing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's that's
Mm-hmm.
all great and dandy, but like,
Yeah.
who shows up for you whenever you're going through something? So
Yeah.
anything that's happening on the world stage or in real life, if we apply it interpersonally, it can only
Mm-hmm.
ever benefit us coming back to like what is the truth of how I want to live my life? Who are the
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
around me?
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I like that you touched on the sense of community, because again, that is something that has been so stripped away from us, especially in, Western society and these capitalistic societies. Is when we were in community, we were much stronger and much more resilient. We were also dependent on each other rather than the oppressive systems. And now they've, forced us to become so individualistic, isolated us, so that we can't help but depend on these systems of oppression for our survival. And at the same time, because we're relying on those same systems, those systems are used to oppress people around the world, including ourselves. So I think, one of the main focuses of Disconnect has always been to kind of like reshape the way we think about community and reshape the way we
Hmm.
think about, living with each other, working with each other. Is Are we just, like you said, always just hanging out in time in good times and just like party, yeah, yeah, yeah? Or are we actually, getting together and leaning on each other for support and inconveniencing each other? Because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. Is we need to be okay with being inconvenienced and also inconveniencing others, because genetically humans have been built to care for other people, and it
Hmm.
feels good in your body to help other people. Like that's not just like some coincidence or something. That's how we learned to survive over millions and millions of years of evolution. That's
Hmm.
why having intercourse, having sex feels physically pleasurable, is because it's again part of our genetic building to survive. Is what feels good is what we're going to do. And that's also the same principles apply to helping communities. It feels physically good to help other people. And that's why we're so depressed all the time, is because no one's helping each other, and or no one's asking for help either, because it feels good both ways. And we've been forced to feel ashamed if we are not independent, or we have to ask for help, and it's looked down upon for, oh, this person's on food stamps, like they're lazy. Like, no, they need help, and we need to provide help. um
Hmm.
so I guess, I wanted to also uh, touch a bit on, kind of going from, all the yoga work that we've done, all the event producing work that we've done, like the Attune events, the Liberation in the Park events.
Yeah.
We've had some history with all the work that we've done together. And I wanted to, I guess, ask, so, you're 500 hours certified yoga instructor, but the way that, you teach yoga is very different than what people get to experience over here in LA and like in Western countries, with like the bastardized version of yoga, right? And so I guess I wanted to touch a bit on how has your deepening of connection with, your yoga practice shaped the work that you do today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say all the Disconnect Foundation events that you named, I love to be a part whenever I can, and
Hmm.
the things we've created together. It really bridges that world of like joy in community and the mutual aid, knowing that those
Hmm.
same people that are going to be there for crisis support are the same people that you get to enjoy and break bread with
Hmm.
and dance with. And so I really
Hmm.
love the bridging of that world. And it
Hmm.
really represents what you bring to the world. So just
Thank you.
wanted to name and honor that. Yeah, I was certified in India, and then I just
Hmm.
recently finished another certification program here. So I guess it would be like 700 hour. And
Oh, wow.
I still feel like I'm at the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to the wealth of knowledge that exists,
Hmm.
because yoga is, again, the way I explain it, like yoga and Ayurveda are sister sciences, but there's also a wealth of
Hmm.
other cultural systems of knowledge, whether that's recipes or martial arts or dance and storytelling and mythologies.
Hmm.
Like those are all parts that create this world that I'm just dipping my toe into. And so
Hmm.
my practice and the way I teach is definitely coming from my worldview and also collections of like knowledge and insight from so many different teachers and traditions
Hmm.
that makes me who I am. And then I offer
Hmm.
from that place. Um, yeah, I guess the way that my last teacher had taught me was how to bridge. So it's not just movement and then there's meditation, but how do you bridge
Hmm.
those two and make it meditative movement? And then not only that,
Hmm.
how do you maybe bring stories of mythology and weave that in? And how do you bring
Hmm.
some psychology and some anatomy and physiology and weave that into the practice so there's
Hmm.
active learning happening, but in a liminal space.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that is accessible to many. So that's how I'm trying to teach, and that's how I
Hmm.
am teaching.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I've just found that when you can create that kind of space that is accessible, then there's less reform and change to do later.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when you have a practice that feels like a lot of people can reach it, it feels like it's doing the most good in the world. And yoga, ultimately, it means
Hmm.
union. How can
Hmm.
we unite that space of uh, like the body, the mind, the heart. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm still in exploration as a student of life of,
Hmm.
of what gets me to that state, and therefore just wanting to hold more spaces where other people can explore that too.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I think, that was one of the key things that, I learned from you was I think the first event that we did together where brought up like the board with, all the different modalities within yoga.
Yeah.
And it was just so refreshing to, learn a bit about like, I guess, traditional yoga in the sense that not just like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and do like a yoga class uh without really understanding the depth of it, the origin of it, and how it was used historically, and like it's the way that it survived in colonial times as well. It's all part of the legacy of resistance of
Hmm.
people from India, South Asia, um, and yeah, just such a beautiful legacy that we have imparted on the world, and I think it's just our gift to the world, and we need more practitioners, more instructors, more teachers like yourself that understand the depth of this practice, and so that when it's being taught, those principles are not getting diluted or lost and just turning into like a gym workout, because it's so much deeper. Like you said, it's the union of the mind, body, and soul, and not just a way of loosening your hamstrings,
Hmm.
which, might be a benefit of it, but it's so much deeper than that. And you will lose a lot of the beautiful aspects of it if you're only focusing on one side of things. So yeah,
Hmm.
just, once again, thank you for not only, helping me in my journey, but also bringing that and offering that to the Disconnect community and to all the other students that you've worked with the tune events and with the private events that you've done as well.
Hmm.
I know it's just been a very beautiful experience for the people that have the opportunity to attend that. Um, and then I also wanted to, just touch a bit on one of the main things you said at the beginning, but also, we've talked about this privately in the past as well multiple times, which is, your love for dancing. And I remember one time we were on a phone call and you were like, I just want to dance. And I remember that. And I was just like, yes, me too, me too. I just love dancing, but uh, there's just so much power behind moving our bodies in rhythmic fashions. And that was kind of like one of the inspirations for the Drums of Liberation event.
Hmm.
But I really wanted to hear from you. Is you talked a bit about your journey as dancing when you were younger and stuff, but how how is dancing part of your, daily practice, and also why people should dance more? I just want to hear like a bit of your understanding of the power of dancing.
This is so great because it feels like actually an accountability check-in.
Hmm.
I could definitely be dancing more. Always,
Hmm.
always. It's a
I
good
think we all can.
reminder, yeah, to be in that expression and that
Hmm.
joy, that deeply in my embodied experience. I feel like dance is an evolution of yoga. Like, well,
Hmm.
not yoga because
Hmm.
it is everything is yoga, but like
Hmm.
in evolution of yoga asanas. We do
Hmm.
specific poses, and dance kind of weaves those into stories, and it's
Hmm.
still the modalities of it's still accessing all the parts of the physiology, but in so much like joy,
Hmm.
and so much
Hmm.
listening in a more artistic fashion. Um, yeah, so dance is like the essence of life, and just as like asana, um, like the yoga is so much, it's like
Hmm.
there's um, mantra, there's yantra, dance,
Hmm.
there's tantra, like all these ways of
Hmm.
weaving this yuj or this union into our lives. So there's a lot there for me to
Hmm.
explore more, but
Hmm.
the ultimate exploration is just the practice of it. So thanks
Hmm.
for that reminder. I do desire to dance more.
Yes, I'm sure there's a lot dancing coming in your near future with all the travels you've got going on. So I'm sure you'll be getting
Inshallah.
on some dance floors. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to ask you about and learn from you.
Yeah. I
If
will say this about
Yeah.
dance is that like
Mm-hmm.
there's this concept also called Leela, like the play of life, and how
Mm-hmm.
to, even though we live in times where there is war and there is destruction and there is like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
our eyes really opening to some larger truths that have been existing, and we're taking that information in.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we approach life as if that like we can create a dance out of our movements, out of our
Mm-hmm.
protests, out of our, activism as well. Like how
Mm-hmm.
can we play and use playfulness in that
Mm-hmm.
field?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that feels very related to
Mm-hmm.
like Krishna consciousness. There's that
Mm-hmm.
deep compassion that allows you to care for humanity, but then
Mm-hmm.
how do you bring like a levity to the steps
Mm-hmm.
to where it
Mm-hmm.
turns into a dance?
Right.
Yeah, with
Make it
life.
more make life more playful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think, um, sometimes when we think about dancing, we sometimes think about dancing alone, but also dancing in community is such a strong way to deepen and strengthen relationships. With my background as a DJ, I started off as a dancer first. I love dancing to music, and that's how I became a DJ. And that's how
Hmm.
I became, curator of events and parties and spaces where people would come together and dance because, like I mentioned earlier, with the patriarchy and, being so disconnected from our bodies and stuff, one of the only things that really helped me connect to myself and my body and my emotions was the dance floor, and listening to music and channeling that through my body is what has healed me a lot and has helped me heal, but has
Hmm.
also helped me connect with other people on the dance floor and deepen relationships, break down barriers, grow intimacy with people that you might not normally even say hi to on the street, but on the dance floor you couldn't be closer than brother sister. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful way to connect.
Hmm.
So I know you have a few exciting things that you've been working on. First things would be the website that you just launched. And I know it must have been very difficult because there's so much that you bring to the world and your offerings. So tell me a bit about what's on this website, what are your offerings, and how did you figure out what exactly you wanted to
Totally.
bring? Yeah, there's so much.
Valid question. Because, like I said, I love to honor that I'm a multidimensional being and
Hmm.
there isn't like one career path that I can take and just stay there. I'm also a Gemini,
Hmm.
so maybe that has something to do with it as
Oh
well.
man, okay.
Yeah, just so many passions, and when
Hmm.
I'm passionate about something, I do like I love it wholeheartedly and with my full
Hmm.
presence. So I don't want to discount that.
Hmm.
But because most of my experiences in education, and I still very much believe in uplifting children's voices, and specifically too, I've been offering, and as a classroom teacher, I had a lot of
Hmm.
neurodiverse children in my classroom. And so part of
Hmm.
the goal was, growing up, we would have like special ed classrooms and general ed
Hmm.
classrooms. And it was like, but again, like I was saying, how can we create systems where everyone is present and it's inclusive, but from the place of like, okay, let's see what their specific needs are, and then
Hmm.
build every system in the classroom based off of those kids and their specific needs because it could
Hmm.
only benefit everyone else, you know? Um,
Hmm.
so because of that, I formed more of a relationship with like, how do I hold special care and space for people who have what I might also describe as different sensitivities than us. A lot of
Hmm.
neurodiverse children or people, they have less information coming from outside and more coming from like inside to out. So part of their journey is like, how do you bridge
Hmm.
the communication gap of like
Hmm. Hmm.
learning the social constructs, like learning that, but not from a
Yeah.
way of like looking to others to build a sense of self.
Yeah.
Because that's what most people are doing. A lot of babies, as they're learning, they're looking to the outside to mimic, to then develop language or thought or feelings,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
there's something that people with unique sensitivities can access within themselves, and they're just trying to find that bridge of how to like express it into the world. What we might also
Hmm.
describe as like genius in some circumstances, right?
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, I definitely think that the Western view of like um, neuro spicy, I guess the term I'll use,
Yeah.
is very limited because again, if you're always applying such a categorical lens to something that is so abstract, you will tend to, first of all, misdiagnose a lot of people, and
Yeah.
also, like you mentioned earlier, like have more of a reactive rather than a preemptive or proactive approach to mental health and just to, like you said, the sensitivities, because again, it's nothing is in isolation, even though
Hmm.
Western medicine wants things to be, oh no, this is just the brain and this is just the body stuff. Like, no, it's all interconnected and it
Hmm.
affects everything so deeply. But
Yeah.
yeah, please,
So
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say more on that is that because of that, I've specifically chosen to work with, and I've been already working with students that parents come to me and they first see it like in academic settings, or
Hmm.
it can even show up in behavioral settings where something is off, they're needing extra support, they're wanting to take a more holistic route rather than medications, which is, what I
Hmm.
support.
Hmm.
And sometimes you just need to meet kids at their level. And they're, because of the state of the world right now, it only makes sense that so many people are experiencing and children are experiencing some form of anxiety or disconnection.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then also overstimulation based off of like so many screens, and it causes like the whole system to be inundated with information, so
Hmm.
therefore thought to thought to thought to thought and thing to thing, it's very common for kids to be diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. And
Hmm.
so I really think those minds are very unique, though, and if they gain
Hmm.
the knowledge and tools of how to concentrate, they can take whatever it is that their interest is and
Hmm.
expand it into something really beautiful and offer it as a gift back
Hmm.
into the world. But it
Hmm.
takes someone to like see that, and oftentimes I do invest a lot of my time into like, let me release it with you, and
Mm,
kind of walk you through. And I do refer a lot back to yoga. Like my
mm,
template is using Ashtanga, the eight limb path of yoga, of like, okay, how do we first start with ethics and then work to be present with our breath, and then work with our body and notice where
mm,
there's tension, and then like be very curious about our senses and what sensory information we're taking in, and then how to turn that inwards and notice the sensory information inside of our bodies, and then really concentrate and be with it.
Mm,
You know, that space of centeredness and grounding, these individuals, and I'm mainly working with children, but it could be any age, you know, really everyone has that
mhm.
inner child in them
Right,
that
exactly.
when they're given the space to like access
Hmm.
that level of depth, they are able to touch on more of what they really want to be offering into the world.
Hmm.
And the world generally, it profits and it benefits from people staying disconnected from that really centered, deep,
Hmm.
grounded version of themselves. It's like if you can keep them kind of distracted here, 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 you can
Right.
continue to sell people on anything, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
So when you, from especially from a young age, learn to be embodied in a centered place and access information from the outside world from that place, there's a lot more discernment that takes place,
Hmm. Hmm.
and inner alchemy.
Yeah, I like that you use the term discernment because I think
Hmm.
that's definitely just lacking in a lot of general spaces, especially in like the activism spaces that I'm in, where there's like, there's just a lot of noise and there's a lot of fighting and infighting and like I understand why, and it's
Hmm.
because there's just like inundation of information. Your brain just the whole time, and people are, like you said, so disconnected from their bodies, so they are losing the discernment. Like, oh, is this something that is worth my time? Is it worth my energy? And instead of even taking the time to get to that point, it's just firing, go, 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 go. That's why people are so reactionary, and like, and I understand, but this is what they have designed the system to be, is to
Hmm.
keep us so reactionary that we don't have the capability or capacity to really ground ourselves. And I think
Hmm.
that, it ties back to like literally everything we've talked about: education, healing, yoga, patriarchy, matriarchy, and all those things. I think it's all connected. And I think that's why, we should take our healing so seriously, because the world is really counting on us to be able to have that discernment when it comes to the work that we do.
Totally.
Um,
And it's a self
mhm,
reminder every day too.
mhm,
You know, I'm not saying these things like as if I'm an expert removed from these issues in my own life. It's a daily
mhm,
practice
mhm,
to remind myself um, uh, to keep a hold of my attention, that in self is itself
mhm,
is a form of currency, and to be really mindful of like how I'm spending time and
mhm,
energy and attention, and how
mhm.
I'm paying it, you know, because we literally say that we
Exactly.
pay attention, right? And
Mhm,
so then
mhm,
when we take our power back and then are very
mhm,
particular, like with what we're choosing to
mhm,
expend, and then also to consume, that kind of self-love, like it affects everything in our lives.
mhm.
Yeah, and then going
Beautiful.
back to my website, that's only one thing.
Right. Tell me what else is
But
on the list?
that's the main
Yeah.
thing though, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Again, because of
Yeah.
my
Beautiful.
experience as an educator, I really see
Hmm.
myself consulting in that field. Mm.
Hmm.
But other than that, I've also I've taken a doula certification course for
Hmm.
birthing, and so supporting mothers and learning how to better be a support in my own
Hmm.
communities, how to show up, and like, you know, whether it's a meal train for after a mom just had a baby. I've done a couple
Hmm.
of placenta encapsulations, like how to adorn
Hmm.
the belly of a mother and when she's getting more excited to birth into the world, and weave the
Hmm.
intentions into that art piece. And that connects to my henna offerings, like the body work.
Hmm.
Um, it's not just for the sake of adornment. There's also
Hmm.
prayer and intention woven into that. So I love to
Hmm.
do that in one-on-one settings around like birthdays or pregnant moms. Or the most recent one I did was a friend, she had a pregnancy loss. And so part of the piece that I
Hmm.
gifted her was from a place of the experience of grief and integrating that into art and
Hmm.
adornment and reclamation in a sense.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of beauty in the
Hmm.
art
Hmm.
that I find, and I want to
Beautiful.
hold the space um, for that as well.
Beautiful.
And then just through my doula certification, I learned so much about herbal support, and I've been deepening with
Mm,
like, how can I be curious about all the plants growing around me wherever I am and how they're used medicinally? And, that
mm,
connects me to the original stewards of each land too. Like I
mhm,
can feel a sense of like, um, indigenous ancestries on the lands that I walk on, but when I connect to the plants, that
mhm,
actually gives me something material to work with to
mhm, mhm.
connect to their medicines as well. So that's something I've been building out my medicine and my tea cabinet, my herb cabinet.
Beautiful. Amazing. Amazing.
So,
Okay, cool.
yeah. Mhm.
So
And then one more thing, actually,
yeah,
just
yeah,
for me,
tell me.
all the community activations and collaborations. I mean,
Mhm,
in a
mhm,
sense, I've done that with you as well to come in as an
mhm,
artist or a teacher or a guide in some way, but
mhm,
also birthing ideas of my own into the world or coming in as a
mhm.
creative director for a friend that has a great idea and wants to birth something into the world. So
Right.
that's a space of excitement for me, having ongoing
Mm,
projects like at least a few a year that I
mhm.
can put my time and energy into. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just been such a great, honor for me to work with you in so many different capacities and bring your wisdom to the world and to the disconnect community in general. But yeah, it's just been such a beautiful and educational experience. I think one of the reasons why I have so much admiration, respect for you and the work that you do is I feel that you hold the people around you to a higher standard when it comes to their healing and spirituality. And it's been very beneficial for me personally just to be around you and around the people that you also surround yourself with, because it shows me that, hey, like you're on the right path, but there's also certain parts of you that you need to work on, you need to heal, because I think we touched on this earlier, is the more healing you do for yourself, the better you can show up for the world. And at the end of the day, as organizers, as activists, as people that are trying to birth this new world, like you said, you know the seriously more seriously we take our healing, the the more beautiful the world will be that we create, because it's coming from a place of love rather than any remnants of the colonial mindset that has been implemented in us. um, and so I guess I
Totally.
just want to end this call with asking you one final question, which is what has been inspiring you lately, and what's something that is exciting you, what's on the horizon for you, and what are you looking forward to in this new year, the year of the fire horse, and yeah, what can we hear or expect from Sophia this year?
Mm. Well, first, I want to speak on what you were saying about, holding people to high standards around us. My
Hmm.
name means pure. That's why my parents
Mm.
named me that. I mean, in Greek, it's wisdom, and in Arabic, it comes from the root of
Oh.
pure. And so I
Mm.
think there is just a natural inclination to continue to purify. And that's why I put myself through experiments. It's like stepping into the fire
Mm.
and purifying.
Mm.
And, like we ultimately we get to be a reflection for those we love. And that's how our internal space stays clean. And then we can,
Mhm.
we see all these um, governments around the world and maybe coups, and then, like their leaders fall, and then whoever steps in, there's hope around it at first, but sometimes it ends up being a problem in a totally different direction. It's like, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
the idea is like when you really hold yourself to high standards,
Mhm.
and then those are ultimately the leaders that we actually want in place, because that creates a
Mhm.
sustainability in the people that are looking out for the majority, right? And so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, maybe it's just for me a part of living up to my name. And
Mm.
then through
Beautiful.
that, all the ideas and my offerings get birthed. And so, therefore, in just launching my website, I'm saying more specifically, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm calling
Mhm.
in. So,
Mhm.
building in more of that. um, what do I call it? Like those specific beings that I'm meant to work with. I'm calling more of that
Hmm.
in, and I'm already working with a few, and that's been exciting. Um, Also, someone asked me this recently. Um, we had a women's circle, and someone did ask me, like, what does the fire horse mean to you? And the first thing that came to me is like, all that not only shedding but evolving that we've been doing in
Hmm.
silos and the self work, it starts to finally come, we're coming deeper into, just like a horse is taking off, but it's not a singular entity. I feel it's like all of our self work is coming together in this bigger momentum that's moving us forward. So I see
Hmm.
it as like different communities, whether it's like revolutionary spaces or
Hmm.
agroforestry communities, like
Hmm.
really linking the knowledge and the wisdom of all the
Hmm.
spaces that we know in, in this country, in the West Coast and the Northeast, and exploring different
Hmm.
coasts and seeing how it's happening, and then linking those things, and then seeing how it's happening in Cuba, and how it's happening here, and
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
starting to really weave those communities and start taking the momentum forward. I do believe on some level that is the systems work that is taking place that is going
Hmm.
to build the infrastructure for what we desire to birth, what kind of world we want our children to
Hmm.
grow up in, and their children, and the sustainability of it.
Beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful. Well, it's just been so nice to, just catch up with you and just to, hear all the beautiful things that you've shared with us today. And just, yeah, just so excited for you for this new chapter, for your new website, all the offerings. The world is, very grateful to have you, and we're very lucky to have you. So, just wanted to make sure that, you know that, and I hope you
Mhm.
know that you hold a lot of power, and again, we're just so grateful. And then finally, obviously, Disconnect being very music centric and dance centric. Last question, I promise,
Yeah.
is what is something that you've been listening to lately that's made you want to dance?
Mm. Mhm. What have I listened to lately that makes me want to dance? Mm.
You know, scroll through your Spotify real quick, but
I don't have Spotify right now.
okay,
I've
okay,
been
good,
trying
good,
Cobuzz, which is a
okay,
whole
good.
experiment in itself. Um, I will think, I mean, one of the more recent experiences of dancing in community I had was the Drums of Liberation event.
Yeah, that was a
Such
great
a
one.
great example of like what has excited me is the actual vibrations of drums and the drum beat,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
moves my body and my feet so immediately. Like there's such an immediate response.
Hmm. Hmm.
I recently also went to an Aztec danza. It was
Whoa.
a ceremony that was happening, and again, the sound of the drums. It's so the body
Mm.
immediately responds to like having some sort of, even if it's not full out dancing, but some sort of
Hmm.
like rhythm remembrance. So
Cool.
drumming,
Yes, absolutely. That's
yeah.
beautiful. That's definitely a core part of
What
who
about for
we are.
you?
For me, I've actually, similarly enough, I've been taking this Afro-Cuban drumming class, and I've been learning a lot about traditional Cuban drum patterns, and the chants, and the religion that's connected to the drumming. And it's been, just a really, really beautiful experience.
Yeah,
And it helped me learn a bit about how the African diaspora has shaped music from all parts of the world. And it's just been a really beautiful experience. So that's been true for me. And then
hmm,
also, we are working on the next iteration of Drums of Liberation, and that announcement's going to come soon. We'll let you know when it is. Hopefully you'll be back for that. But
yeah,
all right,
inshallah.
well, that's all we had for today. Thank you, Sophia, again for everything. Really, really appreciate you. Really excited for you. And thank you all for watching and being part of the Disconnect community. Keep an eye out on our socials for next week. There's a lot of cool, exciting things coming. And all right, that's it for today. Mwah. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take
you,
care. We'll
Pranish.
see you guys soon.
All right.
Bye, all.